and also Michael Erickson from KSOL, who's here right now.
Billy Jam.
Also Rico Casanova, who's the director of PROS. So what exactly is PROS?
Well, the PROS stands for Professional Disco Programmers Association, which is an organization of DJs, and we've got about 75 members from, well, as far north as Sacramento and as far south as Fresno. And we promote music and artists.
And you're also have got something to do with the DJ USA Music Club. So what's the difference between the two?
Well, the pros are for the professional DJs that already have experience and that are currently working consistently, and so therefore we provide them with promotional records, and they're able to, on a consistent level, expose the product to new music to new people. The DJ USA is a situation where people they don't quite qualify to get into the pros, because it started out as an extension of a waiting list, okay, to get into the pros, and then we just opened it on up because a lot of people really liked it. We've got about 200 members internationally.
Yeah. Now, Michael, you're with KSOL.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been listening to rap music for a good while now. When you get a chance to sort of like listen to all the records and figure out what's going to go on the air at KSOL?
Well, I have a lot of chance to play some new music because I do put it in the mix on KSOL, and so they give me a little bit more freedom than the regular playlist that we'd normally play. So I get a chance to preview a lot of the new records and independent records before the station itself would consider adding them. So a lot of the time, after listening to them a few times in the mix, if the audience reacts strongly to them and if it sounds good on the air, then the station itself might add it to a regular rotation.
So when you do your mixes, do you do them somewhere else and then bring them in and then mix them in with some other records, or you do it all live?
Well, most of it now is pre-recorded in a studio that's designed for mixing. Radio station, unfortunately, is designed for a radio station, and so it's difficult to do the same quality of mixing. What I do is put them on 10-inch reel-to-reel tapes, and that gives me the flexibility to mix out of the tape into records and then back into other parts of the tape. So I can do some of it live and have some flexibility to it. But because I've been doing it for a few years now, the structure of the mixes and how we play them, I've got it down so well that I'll record it as if it were live. Yeah. But it is actually being played on a tape.
Mm-hmm. Now, Rico here and also David Cook, the Bronx Prince, they're heavily into this house music. Are you into that? Is KSOL incorporated that? Someone told me that they started playing it very recently.
Well, I wouldn't use the word into, but I do play some. I mean, I try to cover all the basics from what I would refer to as the hardest core street music to what is also considered mainstream pop music. I mean, I really try to cover the spectrum, because I feel if street music is going to make it into the mainstream at all, it has to be played right along with the pop music to get acceptance. If you just say, here's some street music I'm going to play for a while, and then you stop and start playing regular music again, then it's always going to be considered something different. I'm trying to incorporate it so that it becomes part of the mainstream itself.
Now, street music, I know that 2 years ago every day at lunchtime KSOL used to do was it the beat of the street, the mix? You don't use that anymore, that term, do you, street music?
No, we again have incorporated just music in the mix now. It's become more of a mainstream term.
And strong song, is that
strong songs. Yeah, but it's become just more part of the station now. When we first introduced it, we had to define for our audience what music in the mix was, because the main audience did not know. And so what we did is went through about a period of a year and a half where we were really trying to explain to people what mixing was all about. After a year and a half of that, when people really understand, then it's just music in the mix.
Yeah. Now, we've talked over the last few weeks when David was in here about, how music sometimes starts out in the clubs. Rico, what do you think? Do you think the clubs are ahead of the radio stations on the West Coast, or what, as far as mixing goes?
Well, as far as mixing goes?
Programming
yeah.
versus programming.
It depends on who gets the records first, for the most part, because there's no set format on if the clubs are going to get it first or if radio is going to get it first. It just depends upon the artists and the record labels, whatever they decide to do. But a lot of times the clubs are very instrumental, or the streets are very instrumental in dictating a hit that radio hasn't picked up on. And through the strength of the streets, sometimes we can force airplay, or we can generate sales without airplay. Good example of that is Janice on 4th and Broadway. The name of the song is Bye Bye. It's been out for quite some time, and I know the pros and the DJ USA members are still jamming it and buying it, and and playing it, and it hasn't got on major radio yet, but it's still kicking. It's got a lot of life to it.
Well, even that song, the Timex Social Club, which started out on KALX, it took a long time for that to make it into the mainstream, didn't it? 2 years.
Yes, it did. And I think because of the quality of the pressing, I think it threw a lot of people off in terms of that particular song. I don't think it was the best pressed record. And a lot of times, there's so much product out nowadays that you listen for that. If you don't hear the quality right away, you'll put that away for a minute and listen to something else. And that minute may turn into a day or a week.
So what about advice then to people who are like doing like just straight music or rapping, and they want to get onto a record label? Do you think it's worth spending as much money as they can scrounge up and to get the best possible production?
Well, yeah, in a sense, you have to know what you want. You have to be able to compete with what's happening nationally, or else you'll always be a local artist. If you want to get out there and compete with the big boys, it's easy to do, especially nowadays. The technology is bringing things more to an affordable situation than before. But you have to listen. You have to listen to what's already successful and see if you can at least match that as far as quality is concerned. And if you can't, then you really shouldn't waste your money.